everyone. My name is Pierre Herzog and today we're building drones. So this is a DIY homemade drone that we've recently built, and I'm going to take you through the steps and show you exactly how it's done. Now the first thing is, why would you build your own drone? With high quality drones like the Sharken, the Kutacopter and the Gannet available, why would you build a drone? Now if you think it's going to be much cheaper, then it's definitely not so. Maybe it will work out a little bit cheaper in the end, but that must not be your main motivation. So why do we build these drones? We build them because it's fun and it's exciting, that first takeoff, to see if it's working, and if you use it and you catch something with that, with a line dropped with a fishing drone like this, then it's absolutely just much better for me than buying or using a commercially bought drone. So I'm going to start with the frame, because the frame is for me one of the most important things in this drone. If your frame is not 100% stable, you will not have a successful drone. Now I've built quite a few up until now. I've lost count somewhere. It must be 9 or 10 different models with various variations in them. But one thing that I've really learned is your frame is important. The frame must be stable. If you do not spend enough time on your frame, then the rest of your build will also not be alright. Now if we look at this frame is from aluminium. It's not only because we want a very light frame, but it's also stable. And I can tell you, if you must choose between adding a little bit of weight to your frame and having a less stable frame, then I would say definitely add that little bit of weight and get it more stable and rigid. The electronics in your flight controller is not what, it doesn't like a frame that's bending and a frame that's moving. It's really something that you must make sure of. We can have a look at the dimensions of this frame, but what basically happens is, this is a H-type of configuration, and we've built it so that a 16-inch prop can fit on it. So at the moment we've got 13.5-inch props, and you can see there's still a lot of place in between left if we want to put a bigger prop. This drone we've especially built to lift bigger baits, and we'll talk about the electronics and the motors a little bit later. But let's stay with the frame first. Now the motor mounts is also very important. If that motor came loose, and it did happen to us a few times, not a few, 1 or 2 times, and it's catastrophic. If this motor is not solidly fixed there, you'll see there's 4 bolts at the bottom. Make sure you fit all of them. Make sure you've got a solid place where you mount your motor, and that is really securely mounted, and there must be absolutely no movement in the motor mounting. So that's one of the things. The other thing, the place where you push in your battery terminals, and let me just move it like this. Now if I'm going to put in my battery here, in this case we've made a compartment for the battery. Just want to make sure it's in there. Like that. The place where you push in your terminals must be very secure here. So if you're going to push in your terminals and this is going to move, it may result in not having good connection in your battery, and that could also be a big problem. The mounting for the battery, a loose battery in the air is also going to cause some trouble. There's going to be a little bit of a velcro here to keep this battery in place. A battery that's moving and that's not fastened or securely fastened in your drone will definitely cause your flight controller cause some trouble. Because remember, everything that moves in a drone must be corrected by the flight controller, and if the flight controller do that correction or must do that correction all the time, it is not going to be as stable in the air as you would like. Another thing is the landing of the drone. It lands much better on 3 legs. If the surface is not 100% flat, then 4 legs will always have a place somewhere where it's not going to sit precisely, and there will be a little bit of movement. Also, make your footprint as big as possible for your legs. You can see these 2 legs are at the end of the drone. This one is right to the front, so that will give me a big footprint, and this drone will just land perfectly. Yes, the Phantoms and so on have got small footprints, and yeah, they do fall over, so that happens. A bigger footprint will just make your landing much easier. Then the place where you mount your GPS, also make sure that it's absolutely securely mounted there, that there's no problem or movement in that. You can think for yourself, your GPS and your other electronics, sensor electronics in here, do not want to move left and right and up and down while you're busy. So that is very important. So the biggest thing with the frame then is make sure everything is 100% secure and will not move while your drone is in the air.
So just before we go to the electronics, I want to show you here we lift a 5 kilogram bag with it. Obviously you cannot drop a bait of this size, but it shows you the power of this drone. Right, and here we are on the beach. I removed the lid there for you to see. So Dirk is hooking in the drop loop beneath the drone. Fishing for sharks here at Kabeljauw's Beach in Jeffreys Bay. So this is not a big shark bait. In a different video we'll talk about the bait and how to do that. So Hansie is handling the remote and Dirk is holding the rod. Always help if you've got someone to hold the rod. Right, you can see the line peeling off the reel as it goes out. Just want to show you the landing, very stable. The RTL also works very well, and here's the result. Lynn-Marie is on with a shark. Right, I'm only going to show you a short clip. Full video will be on the channel. Quick measurement and tag for the Ocean Research Institute of South Africa. Quick photo of the shark, Lynn-Marie with her brother, and then back into the sea.
Right, so let's look at the electronics, and I'll do the electronic components one by one. It's really nothing to be scared of. I know many people, if they hear the electronics, then they're a little bit scared about that, but these systems are basically sorted out already, and if you choose the correct components and you've got a little bit of knowledge there, there's also a wealth of information on the internet available on each one of the types of flight controllers, and it's really not something to be scared of. So if you really want to build your own drone, then don't be scared of the electronics. Let's talk about the different components in this specific drone. Right, we're going to talk about the motors now, and this specific drone we've designed for heavier loads. So the specific motor that we chose here, this one is a Foxtech motor, and it's a 390 kV motor. It's a slower motor, and it's normally used in higher lifts. We also must combine this now with a 6-cell battery, because the kV rating there is coupled to the amount or the voltage of your battery. So if you go for a lower, and I'm not going to make this a very difficult or long explanation. What I can tell you, if you use 6-cell batteries, go for a 320, 380, 390 kV motor. If you use 4-cell batteries, go for a 680, 690, 700 kV motor. So that's the two choices that you've got. So normally in the heavier loads, if you want to lift heavier loads, go for a slower motor but higher voltage in your battery. So that was the choice there. Another thing about the motors, buy the best motors that you can get. If you're going to put on cheap motors, you may be going to use that drone once or twice, and you'll have bearings that's gone or motors that's going to fail on you, and that will obviously be catastrophic. Let's move to the rest of the components. For this drone, we've selected a Pixhawk, and you don't need to go for the latest model in the Pixhawk or in the APM. Now remember, APM flight controllers are discontinued, or no, they're not discontinued, but they're not supported anymore with the Mission Planner software. So we decided on the Pixhawk. We've used APM in the past, but the Pixhawk is very nice, and this one is the 2.4.8. It's an old Pixhawk, but it's perfectly fine to use for a fishing drone, and you've got a lot of control in your settings on it. So that's then your flight controller. Let's talk about the main components. The flight controller, here's your receiver for your remote, because it doesn't matter what remote you use, you need a receiver for it, and the receiver is coupled to the flight controller. Now again, in this video we cannot go into detail into the couplings here, but there's stuff on the internet available for you for each flight controller telling you exactly what to do. I'm just going to highlight a few important things if you're going to build a drone like this. So this flight controller will normally come with its GPS, its compass, and you will normally also get your power supply part. Now this is not really a power supply. The voltage from the motors or from the battery is going right through this to the motors, and it measures the current and voltage, and it passes that on to the flight controller. And it also supplies the flight controller with power. So that's the aim of that power module of yours. So there's not a lot left here. We've got a little buzzer there. I don't know if you can see it. There's the buzzer mounted. All of this is mounted inside a plastic food box like this, and this is part of the DIY drone. So we like to put it in there and not open, like for instance in the turret frames. There's a lot of moisture and things when you're flying close to the sea, and you at least want to cover it a little bit. And a lot of that moisture is not coming in when you fly out and in, but when it stands there on the beach while you're waiting for a bite, or while you're fishing, then moisture collects here. And the good thing is to just throw a towel over your drone while it's not in use. So those are the basic things that's in here. Now, the flight controller is going to control each one of these motors to keep the drone stable in the air and to make sure it doesn't flip and things like that. So the flight controller must control these motors, and it controls it in this way. A control wire is coupled to each one of these little electronic speed controls. Now remember, your motor is actually a 3-phase motor. So that control wires, the small control wires, here you can see them, the small ones here, is going to the electronic speed control, and it's telling this electronic speed control how to manipulate the 3-phase that's sent to the motor. Again, you've got nothing to do with this. The flight controller is doing it. As long as you couple it correctly, and then you don't have to worry about that, because the flight controller is doing the work there. Right, so it controls the electronic speed control, and the electronic speed control is then passing that information in the form of 3-phase power to the motor, and the motor will then react in that way, and it will keep the drone, for instance, let's say the flight controller, you with your remote controller to be at 20-meter height, and maybe something happens, there's a little bit of wind to this side, and then the speed of these motors must be changed in order for it to stay exactly there. So the flight controller is doing all of that, and you don't have to worry about it. As long as you coupled it correctly, as long as it's flying, it's doing that very fast, and you don't have to worry about that at all. So where each wire must go in, what must happen here, all of that is available for you. If you want to use this specific PIXHAWK, then get some information, go to YouTube, find some videos on the specific PIXHAWK, how it's coupled, and what you do here there. What I can tell you, what in many of these videos are not available, and something that we had a problem with a few times, is you will see in these control wires that's going to the electronic speed controls, there's 3 wires there. There's a ground that must be coupled. Then on the other side, there's either a white or a yellow wire, and that is the signal wire that must go to your electronic speed control. But then there's a power wire, a red wire as well. Cut that wire. Cut that wire immediately. It may cause some problem. Remember, the electronic speed control is already getting its power from the battery on that black and the red wire, positive and negative, and it doesn't need that red wire. And I've seen in many cases that if you do not cut that red wire, that you get trouble with your speed control. So we do that. We immediately cut the red wire, and that's the middle wire of the control wires that's going to the electronic speed controls. The rest, there's not really anything else in the electronic components. That's it. You will see your flight controller is mounted on a rubber foot piece that also comes with your kit, and that rubber piece, and I normally use double-sided tape to tape it to fasten it to the container where we put this in. Another important thing is, don't seal your container completely. Seal it off, but leave a hole open, maybe somewhere, because remember, there is an air pressure sensor inside your flight controller, and when if the drone gets close to the ground, then it will rather use the air pressure than the GPS to determine its position. So it needs that. If you totally seal this off in your flight controller, then you will have trouble with your air pressure that's not picked up correctly by the air pressure sensor inside your flight controller, and it will not be able to determine the height very well. One last thing, the if you look at the dropping mechanism that we use here, the dropping mechanism is this servo. This servo is coupled to the receiver here, that's coupled to your remote, and that's controlled by your remote. And this type of mechanism, dropping mechanism, works very well. You can see it's a piece of Dacron that's just fastened there. It goes over that servo arm there, and if your remote will then let the servo be in that position, and then your drop loop will hang here down to the bottom, and as soon as you push that button on your remote, this will go down, this will go off, and your drop loop will drop. And that's the basic dropping mechanism. This, I know some of the Kuta copters have used this dropping mechanism in the past, and it's absolutely brilliant. It works nicely. It's easy to mount your servo and to use this line. Please make sure that this line cannot move into your props. That could be a problem sometime, but although I haven't had any problem with that, because the wind is normally blowing this line down to the bottom. So that was then a little bit about this build of a Pixel fishing drone. I hope you've enjoyed that. Please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss. If you like drone related stuff, drone fishing related stuff, please subscribe, give the video a like. It also motivates us, and we will bring you some more stuff. Thank you very much.